Hello, my friend. Welcome to the podcast. And I am so excited for today's conversation. I have Stacy Lyn Harris with me today, and we're going to talk about something that I don't think we've ever talked about here on the Old Fashioned on Purpose podcast. We're going to get into hunting and wild game and what that has to do with an old-fashioned lifestyle or a hunting lifestyle. And I cannot think of a better person to have this conversation with. Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I cannot tell you how excited I am to be here and just to see your growth, your platform. Oh my gosh, it's just amazing. So you are remarkable to me for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. As are you. And so before we hit record, Stacy and I were talking about homeschooling, among other things. And I've always marveled at you with your platform and 7 children and homeschooling and all the things you do. So I feel like we have a lot in common as far as having many irons in the fire.
A lot.
So,
yeah. So many. I think of you all the time and I'm like, wow, I don't even know how she's doing it because I don't think I do as much as you do. And
I would bet you do. I bet you're darn close. So yes. So this is going to be good. So you are a hunter and you come from a hunting family. So,
I do, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Yes, so give us a little background on just you and your family and how you got into hunting.
Well, my dad hunted, but I didn't really grow up with him, but he fished a lot too. And so he was an outdoorsman, really good with guns and all that kind of thing. Cause he was in Vietnam and, just did, I think there's like 5 books written about him, but he's just a remarkable, man. But anyway, I married a hunter. And when I got married, I really just didn't care for hunting at all. And so I was like, this is just too much. I don't think I'll be able to take this. But then all of a sudden it's like a light bulb came on in my brain one day and just said, you better get on board and you need to stop bucking him and, bend with him on this. And so I started cooking the wild game first before I started hunting any of it. And I just really got into the cooking of it and realized what a great meat it was. Because when I had it before at different, church events and all, it was like, why would anybody waste calories on this meat? And I figured out a couple of methods and a couple of things that I feel like, will help people to really want to work with this meat. So it's a really, really fantastic. A wild game is really amazing. It's just a matter of cooking it right and aging it properly and, a couple of things like that. So, yeah.
Yes. And I love this. And so people ask often, like if Christian and I hunt, and when I met Christian, he was a hunter and we actually went on some hunting trips as newlywed-ish. I've shot a couple antelope. That's the extent of my hunting. And he shot a couple deer. And then honestly, we got into growing our meat here on the homestead and we ended up having so much in the freezers, that we were like, we just don't have time to go hunt. So we love the idea of hunting. We love wild game. We've just the homestead's kind of pushed that out of the picture.
Yes.
But I think this is such a great option for those who maybe don't have the land or the space to raise beef or pork or maybe even chicken. And they're looking for that sustainable source of meat that is local and isn't, industrial farming.
Yes.
So what are some of the benefits that you've seen and experienced from eating wild game? And why would someone who's maybe a homesteader, would you recommend they look into this?
Well, like you said, if they don't have the land that you have to have, to raise animals. Now we have some chickens too. And raising old hens or cooking old hens is a lot like cooking wild turkey, or cooking any of these other kinds of foraging, animals. But the benefits I have seen are just, I could list them for days, but hunting just in general, the benefits of that, you've got family togetherness. You've got, which is incredible because we were just hunting all together, all 7 of us, or all 9 of us, along with a whole lot of people this weekend at a dove shoot. You've got working together. You're teaching your kids work ethic. You're teaching them how to have skills outside of a business. I mean, being able to survive. I think that's important, and it gives confidence to them, even if they never, really use that. The meat is good for you. It's higher in omega-3 fatty acids. It's just a whole healthier thing, lower in cholesterol, lower in calories, higher in protein. I mean, I could go on and on about how great the meat is from these animals. They have lower fat. It's just a great alternative to domesticated animals. But one benefit that I see from hunting is that it would allow, like, if families hunted and they relied on people like you to provide their meat for them, or farmers that were doing that, the farmers could actually grow their meat slower. They wouldn't have the demand. It would kind of even out domesticated farming and then wildlife. And not only that, but it's so good for the environment and conservation efforts. So, I mean, the benefits are just endless, for hunters and fishermen.
Absolutely. So what percentage would you say of your family's diet is, farm meats versus hunted meat?
Well, for us, I would say 85% of ours is wild. Oh. Yes, because I have, the hunting laws are a little bit different here in Alabama, and I forgot what the limit is for deer, but we usually end up with about 13 deer in the freezer every year. So we're going through that lasts us for the whole year until the next year. So whether that's deer or, there's small game, there's still squirrels and dove and quail and rabbit and pheasant and all of the other things. And then fish in the summertime, going to the coast. We're close enough to the coast that we can go fish for snapper and, and all that. So it's pretty amazing. We pretty much live a lot off of wild game, but I love a steak. I mean, I love a deer steak, but I also love a beef steak, and I still like hamburger meat mixed in, with my bolognese sauce with the pork. And we also hunt wild hogs. So we do have wild pork usually, and the venison. So I like those three kinds of things mixed a lot in my sausages and in my, deer meat, the hamburger meat. So, which you use, well, we'll get to that in a minute, but which you would use for the bad, I say bad, for the more tough pieces of meat that you consume.
Yes. So we've talked a little bit on the podcast in previous episodes about like the benefits of grass-fed beef or the differences with grass-fed beef. So would it be safe to say that this is going to be pretty comparable in terms of nutrients and all that?
Yes, it's very, very comparable. Yes, because they're foraging in the woods with berries and different things. And a lot of people will say that wild game is gamey. And it isn't that it's gamey, it's that it tastes different than your domesticated animals, because it's eating whatever is in season. Or whatever, you plant for it. We may plant wheat sometimes, or, we feed the animals as a whole diet as possible. They eat from our orchards. We don't really keep them from eating, our pears and apples and, the blackberries and pecans and all of those things that are out in the wild. They eat all of that. And so they're just super lean, and they have the flavor of what they are, what they're eating.
Yes. And I've had some people say when they're trying grass-fed meats, like farm meat for the first time, they'll say, oh, it's gamey. And I'm like, it's actually not, like you said, it's not gamey. It's just, this is what meat is supposed to taste like when it's not fed a grain diet all its life. So it's an interesting concept, I think.
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah. And a lot of times it may be gamey if it's not aged right. There's other reasons for it. But if you're, if you're aging it right and everything's going good and you're cooking it right and they still say it's gamey, it's just because it tastes different. But it really doesn't taste a whole lot different, but it doesn't have the marbling, it doesn't have, there's just, it is going to taste different. It's a different animal. Turkey tastes different than beef. So it's just different. Yeah.
So are you primarily hunting on your own land, or are you going into public lands too? Because I know you mentioned your orchards and your fields.
Yes, we pretty much do own our own lands. We have our own property. But the thing is, which we were going to talk about, I think, at least I was thinking I would talk about this a little bit, but if you don't have your own land, because that's really difficult for some people. And it depends on where you live, but there are national forests that allow hunting on those. And I think Theodore Roosevelt set that up, and he was a big hunter, loved hunting. He said he wouldn't have chili without venison, or his chili con carne without having venison in it. And truly chili is not the same to me without venison in it either. But anyway, there's public lands. You may have to pay like $15 or so to go hunting on them. And if you go, you're spending, say that you are able to shoot a deer, you're getting that entire deer for $15. So it can be inexpensive. It can be expensive if you have to buy your own land, or if, you know, you go on a big, huge hunt and it's a guided hunt and you're paying, you know, $5,000 or something. It's different, but usually those people are going on those hunts to get a really big trophy deer or whatever. But when you're doing this for food and sustainable living, you can do it for a lot less. You can kill a bunch, you could kill squirrels and freeze them and keep them for your chili. You know, you can, and squirrel season is a little bit longer than deer season, but the seasons are all, you know, they're all different in every state. But, you know, there are ways to do it that are not expensive and you don't have to have your own property.
Yes, absolutely. And that's when we were antelope hunting specifically. Somehow Christian got to know a rancher a couple hours away. Yes. And so he had a huge property. So you'd go check in at the ranch house every time you'd get there, and you sign a little paper and let him know you were there. And that worked out great. And he was happy to have people coming in to harvest the animals.
Yes.
So it was a win-win. Yeah.
Yeah, a totally win-win. And some people too, they'll pay you to come kill their hogs, because we have a terrible hog infestation on our land. We had it last year. So then when you go for turkey season, they get all into the turkey eggs and they eat their eggs. And so the population of turkeys has really decreased and declined because of that. And it's a terrible thing. So, you know, if there's too many hogs, I don't want to eradicate the hog, but if there's too many, but that's what we're here for.
Yes.
You know, and to take dominion of the earth, and we manage it. We are smart people. We can manage the wildlife. So, and that's what we're here to do. And the only way that, you know, hunters are the ones that know if things are overpopulated, underpopulated, if you're not seeing any quail, which happened, you know, not too long ago, and quail is back on the rise again, but they were pretty much near extinction. And hunters have brought all kinds of things back from extinction. So it's really, you know, people like PETA and all against the hunters. The hunters have the same ideas as PETA. It's just that they don't want you to kill anything. And the fact of the matter is, if you don't manage it properly, they're not going to have any food, because they're going to be overpopulated, or all of the pigs are going to overpopulate everything, and they kill out the deer too, the new fawns. So you have to manage it. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say far and above the hunters that I know, I mean, there's always the bad eggs in the basket, but there is so conscious of that. I think people, if you've never lived in a rural area or never been around a hunting culture, like, they have a different perception, but most hunters are so respectful and so careful. You know, they're so mindful of seasons and permits and making sure that it's not over harvested. And I think it's really a beautiful relationship, because like you said, if we don't manage those, it's not like this beautiful Bambi free for all butterflies and rainbows. It actually gets very detrimental very quickly.
Right. And they get diseases, you know, just like when you put a bunch of people together and just pack them in, they're going to get diseases. And that is what happens when you have overpopulation. So, you know, you're taking into your hands the health. You care about the wildlife. It's not that you don't care about it. You care, you cherish it, you protect it, you feed it, and then it feeds you, and then you feed it, you know, then you take care of the offspring of you know, it's just the circle of life with the animal kingdom, you know, with us involved. So yeah, they're there for us to, you know, to manage and to eat. So, you know, and they're very, very good. So yeah.
Okay, I just have to go on a little rabbit trail for a minute. I am really curious about the wild hogs, because we do not have those in Wyoming. I have never been around wild hogs. Like, are they? I know they're pretty mean, right? Are they mean? Are they like dangerous?
Oh my gosh, I wish I had a picture here to show everybody. They are very mean. They can run over 35 miles per hour. You should see their little feet. It's like you can't even see their feet. They're just going so fast. And destroy your property. You plant green fields, they dig it all up. You just should see it. You'll go and you think it's just all beautiful. The next week you go and it's just completely damaged. Now, I'm not saying that wild hogs are terrible, because we eat their loins, and we eat the ribs, we eat the whole thing, and it's great meat. But they populate so fast, and be glad that you don't have them. And the problem is, I think they were reintroduced to Alabama. And they bring, when they, like, I read somewhere today, I was looking up something because I wanted to cover something on the podcast, but I couldn't find enough documentation for it. But when I was looking online, I noticed that, that the pigs, or that people were bringing wolves and all of these things, trying to bring them into locations. And I mean, I'm not against that, because I don't want them to die out or anything, but do we really want to do that? Do we really want to bring, would you want somebody to bring wild hogs onto your property? It destroys the cattle. Like the guy that's next to us at our property, he owns a big cattle farm. And so he's got just tons and tons of cows. He sells them, he has these big events every year, but they ended up coming in and killing, like, I don't know, 300 in one weekend, off of the property surrounding all of us, and because they can't keep their business going with all these wild hogs. So, it's very detrimental to cattle farmers and to any kind of farmer. And if they're not kept in check, if there's kept in check, you're not going to have that big of a problem. But, they go in packs, and they can, take down a big, huge cow that is, or a deer or whatever, that's stuck in the mud. If it's been like a real rainy season and the cow can't get out. I mean, it's not a pretty sight. So yeah, they're pretty bad. Mean creatures. And I think one of my boys killed one last year that was like 600 pounds. I mean, I'm going to send you a picture when we get off of here. It is huge. And I don't usually put dead things on the internet. And so I didn't put that on the internet, but people would be very interested in seeing it. But he was standing next to it. It was taller. It was like a dinosaur. It was huge. So yeah, they'll take you out.
That just blows my mind. Like, it's just so different than what we have here. I do know, like, people underestimate, like, pigs are omnivores, and so, like, we assume pigs are the happy little corn eating farm animal, but I've heard stories of, even with domesticated pigs, like hog farmers who fall down in the pen and then they don't find the hog farmer for very, like those. So I can see the wild ones being that much more aggressive. So everyone listening to this podcast, I hope you are enjoying the mental pictures we're giving you. So
last year, when they hunted, the cattle farmers hunted with the dogs. I don't understand what they were doing, but anyway, they went out there and one of their dogs, they killed the dog instantly, because they have those big tusks, and so the dog got up there and was chasing it. It just killed it. I mean, it didn't take but just a second. So they're mighty mean. I'll just say that. I don't want to meet one in the dark when you're walking in the woods from deer hunting. It is spooky, and you can hear them. And so you're like, oh, this is crazy. This is so scary. I cannot wait to get out of these woods.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So crazy.
Yeah.
I'd like to see one someday. I just would like to see one in real life, because, just different. We have occasional mountain lion in Wyoming, and we have coyotes, and some parts of Wyoming have wolves, but no pigs.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, you need to come to Alabama. We'll show you some wild hogs.
I need a tour. Yes. So, okay. So back on track here. I had to just take our pig tangent. So let's say someone is wanting to get started hunting, maybe they have their little homestead. They're wanting to add into their meat production efforts, but they don't have family members who do it. This is like a whole new thing. Yes. How can they get started?
So one great thing, I was thinking about this the other day. I was actually talking to Scott about it last night, and he said, really, somebody needs a mentor. But the thing is, we have YouTube, and we have the ability to watch people hunt. There's shows on the Outdoor Channel, and they go over all of this kind of stuff. But having a mentor, or somebody that you could talk to on the phone, that could kind of tell you some things about hunting, is probably the best thing to have. But you just need to get your license. You need to get a gun. Shotgun is the most well-rounded gun. If you know, a lot of people don't, they don't have guns, they don't have a need for them. But a shotgun will, you know, you can harvest big animals, deer, bison, antelope. You can, and to small animals, squirrels and dove and all that. And you could get a rifle, but a rifle is not gonna, you know, you're not gonna want to shoot a bird with a rifle. But you know, a rifle would be good. So a gun, a license, a mentor, you know, some land, which, you know, a public land, or get, you know, somehow get close to some hunter that you like and get invited to their place, but to, you know, some land and just some kitchen equipment if you want to cook it, but really you don't need probably anything that you don't have. So it's really, you know, not too hard. There is a safety class that usually each state will have you go through. And Scott went through it, and he got a lifetime license, but he went through it anyway with my sons. But I think they require it here. So I'm thinking that they might require it everywhere. So, and if we have big hunts on our property, we'll, you know, do kind of an overview of a safety type lesson each time, you know, too. But that's it. I mean, that's all it takes to get started. It's just not a big thing. You know, if you're going to go out there and shoot deer, you're going to probably want to know what position the deer needs to be in, but there's so many things that will show you that. And it's like, if you usually want to have the side view of the deer, and you're going to want to shoot right behind the first, you know, the leg, you know, up in the front, and kind of angle it in where it's going to go towards the heart. Now, my dad, he likes to shoot, I don't know, I guess he doesn't want to ruin the meat, but he likes to shoot their head, which I don't, you know, I don't know about
shot.
But
yeah.
Or the other thing, if you want a longer hunting season, you could use a bow. So, you know, that they get to hunt a little bit longer than people that do with shotguns and stuff. But you know, you'd have to practice an awful lot, and they have to be really close. There's a lot of things to learn when you're bow hunting. But that, if you want a challenge, that's another thing. And to get your kids into that too, you know, that's really fun. And to be able to go out and to shoot bow, you know, to shoot arrows, you know, into a target, and, you know, all that, that's family time. They're learning something. They're learning something they can actually use. And hunting is a lifetime thing. It's not like football or gymnastics. I was in gymnastics, and, you know, I've been stretching lately, but I'm not doing, you know, back handsprings or anything. So, you know, it's a lifelong thing that you can take throughout life. It's not something that you have to stop when you get older.
I love that. Yeah.
You know, yeah. And it contributes to the family, or contributes to your neighbors, or, you know, something that you can do that contributes to other people.
Mm-hmm. And there is something so elemental and rewarding, whether in procuring your food, whether you're doing it through a hunt or you're doing it through a homestead. To see people light up the first time they experience that is just really neat, because it's something, you know, it's built into us as humans. We're supposed to have a hand in that. I firmly believe, not just always buying things at the grocery store. I still buy things at the grocery store, but I think having that firsthand experience is just really a powerful thing.
It is. It totally is. And the kids are like, well, why, you know, we'll go to the store and they'll be like, I don't think Dad's going to be very happy that we're buying bell peppers. And so like, I know, but I need one because I'm doing a recipe for something, but it's not in summertime. And, you know, and I don't have any, you know, I don't have them. And, you know, and so it's like, I'm doing it for a book, or I'm doing it for something I really need it. Normally we do eat very seasonal, but there are times that, you know, I go off grid from off grid, to get what I need to get it done. But, you know, but the kids know, they know what seasons bring. They know that you get cabbage and, you know, kale and all of the things during the winter, and in the summer, at least here. And in the summer, you know, you're going to get your tomatoes and corn and peas and, you know, and all that's put up in the freezer. And they know the seasons. They know things that I think every person should know.
Mm-hmm.
So
I couldn't agree more. I think the seasonal eating, like you, we don't do it perfectly. We try to respect that. You know, I definitely am not buying strawberries in December and things like that. There are exceptions where, you know, even when our cow is dried up, and I'm like, well, technically I'm going to enjoy the lesser milk season, but I kind of need a gallon of milk for this recipe or this thing.
You feel so bad.
You kind of, we fudge, and it's okay. That's part of, you know, the hybrid.
Or eggs, modern, you know, we've got chickens, and Scott's just like, okay, we're going to have to do something about these chickens because they're not laying. And so I'm like, no, they'll lay. So,
Yep.
yeah, and well, we've got to make a pound cake and we need the chickens and they're, not producing. So, but for the most part here in Alabama, our chickens pretty much produce a lot. They'll go through times that they don't, but they, there's so much warmth and, the days, I guess, seem longer anyway when it's clear. I don't know, but
Yeah.
Pretty good.
I think the warmth does have something to do with it. I know ours will, even like we have pullets right now and they've been laying through the winter. But we had a cold snap and they were like, we're done. We're not laying today. So I guess I don't blame them, but the egg famine seasons are always a challenge.
Yes,
do I buy the eggs at the store? Do I just wait it out?
Exactly. And the thing is, like at Christmas time, the ones that are at the store, they peel easier because they're ancient. I mean, they're so old. And so, they peel better. And if I'm making the deviled eggs, I need them to look good. And so I'm going to eventually come up with a way that my fresh ones peel better. So if you have, tell me about that.
I have an idea. You can either steam them in like a steamer basket.
Okay.
Or if you have an Instant Pot, they like 3 minutes in the Instant Pot, they will peel beautifully.
Okay, I'm going to try that. I am going to try that. I need that. In my life.
It is a game
changer. That's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely going to do that for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so speaking of seasons, what does your year look like with a game that you and your family hunt and how those seasons kind of flow into one another? So well, you're doing multiple species.
And besides, you're in Wyoming and I'm in Alabama. But it looks a lot like yours probably, except for, we hunt, but, and you do too. I mean, so you know about that, but we'll start like say in September, the opening for like squirrel and dove and, and deer's coming up. We will plant fields and in the afternoon or whenever, and we'll dove shoot in, or we'll dove shoot in the afternoons, plant fields in the morning or whatever we want to do that way, or go squirrel hunting or, rabbit hunting or whatever. But they open up around that time. During the summer, we've been, doing cover crop and, really trying to get our fields in order, making sure our orchards are good. We've been prepping for the whole entire, from like usually March or April, May, all the way to September. We will be preparing the fields. We'll, be making sure our orchards are good. We'll, be feeding the animals, with oat and, different things that we're growing and, getting everything ready to get our green fields ready. And then in August, we'll start really getting the green fields ready and start planting what we want for them on the green field when hunting season starts in October for deer. So, so right around in September, all the way through April, we are hunting. So turkey season starts in, we'll have deer season end at the end of January. And then Scott and I actually got married in February in between seasons because he had to hunt.
Of course. Yes.
So, so in between seasons. And so March through April, there'll be turkey hunting, and then we start the process all over. And then we have gardens too. So we'll plant our garden and we'll start planting seeds and all of that kind of thing, right? Late February here, because we can start our gardens pretty early here in Alabama, and we can get 2 seasons out of our gardens if we want to. So yeah, because we can replant and it stays warm really all the way through October. So, you can have 2 seasons, which is really great. And if you have a greenhouse, which I don't, and I want one, but if you have a greenhouse, you can get by with even more. So that's pretty much what it looks like. So we're either preparing for hunting or we're actually hunting. And hog season, there is no hog season. It's like they're free game all year.
Oh.
So yeah. So anytime you have a break, come see us and we'll let you go hog hunting.
Go get some hogs. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What is your favorite thing to hunt?
Well, last year I would have said deer, but I am thinking I'm really loving dove right now. I mean, but it's just, we've been in that season. So it's just been fun. It's such a challenge. You have to take into account, and even with deer hunting and all of that, you have to take into account the direction of the wind, how fast it's going, just all of like, is it a bluebird day, or are they flying higher? There's so much to take into account when you're dove hunting, and it's just such a challenge. Scott would say deer for sure. He is passionate about deer hunting, and we had a dove shoot last week, and he was like, I think I'm gonna go deer hunting while everybody's at the dove shoot. And so I was like, he stayed with the group, but that his first thought was, I really want to go, hunt deer. And he doesn't like to miss even one day. And I've been taking more like wildlife photography pictures more than I've been hunting, because the boys get enough deer, that I feel like we get enough. And so I don't really have to hunt. And when the babies were little, I didn't go hunting because he loved it so much, and I didn't really, whatever, and I just really enjoyed, cooking it, but somebody's got to stay with the babies. So, yeah. And we were having them every 2 years or so. So, there's always a newborn that needed to be nursed.
For sure. It is hard to take a baby hunting.
Yes. I've seen it done. And Scott did you take yours hunting?
I did. We took it. I mean, antelope hunting is a little different because it's on flat, open ground with no trees. And so it's really driving around till you see them far away and then kind of walking up to them. And so you can have the baby in the car, and it wasn't like I'm out packing the baby in the woods. That would have been hardcore. I'm not quite that hardcore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it could be done. You probably wouldn't get anything because it would be loud, but they would learn, because I think babies can learn, how to be quiet. I'm not saying little tiny newborn, but as they get older, they know what's going on. So, and the sooner you get them in the woods, all of my kids love to hunt. I thought, oh gosh, how is this going to work when we're doing all kinds of different activities all over the place? But all of my kids like to hunt. And I believe it's because Scott enjoyed it so much. He was happy when he was hunting. And I think children are drawn to what excites you as adults. And so they want to do it too. And then they got involved in it. And he took them hunting from the time they were 3, probably, for the rest of the time. So it's been amazing. It's been like such a gift, to our family.
It is so cool. A little legacy too.
It is, and I hope that they'll do that with their families, but I don't know what the wives. I actually have one married, and she's awesome. She's not a hunter. She doesn't just love it, but he's been coming, still some, and she comes with them and, out to the farm and just kind of hangs out. But it's really, really a great way to keep your family, together and coming to the same place. So, all the time. So you can meet up there and enjoy the outdoors. And that's the other thing too. Kids need to be outdoors, which I know that you're a huge proponent of. They totally need to be outdoors. And that's one great way to get them outdoors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Outdoors with a purpose too. I think that always helps. Make it more exciting. Yeah.
Just like old fashioned with a purpose.
Totally. I love it. So let's shift gears to cooking a little bit, because I love talking cooking. So what are some of the challenges, when we're comparing wild game versus domesticated animals? What do people need to keep in mind with that?
Well, okay. So we talked about that a little bit. The domesticated animals, they usually have some kind of marbling. And, to some degree, there's like a dispersed fat within your meat. Well, with domesticated animals, whether it be turkey, bird, deer, bison, whatever, they don't have that unless they're farm raised. Now there's a lot of farm raised bison. You can go online if you're interested in cooking wild game, and you can order it. And those are farm raised, and they're going to give you the flavor that, a venison would have, but it's going to be more like your organic beef, your free range beef, it's going to be kind of like that. So, but the challenges are to keep it from tasting gamey and tough. And so all of that starts in the field when you are harvesting the deer. Now, y'all have the ability to hang your deer like out. I mean, for like, okay. Does it gets warm there?
Yeah. And that's why we stopped butchering our own beef on our homestead, because we wanted to hang it for an extended period of time. I don't think you hang deer quite that long potentially, but we'll get cold.
Yeah.
We get cold, and then we get super like 50 degrees, and then and it just wasn't consistent enough. So how long would you hang a deer ideally?
Well, you could do it for 2 weeks. And so we leave ours, we go ahead and butcher ours, because like right now, I think we're having a cold day. I think I went outside to lift weights for a minute before we did the podcast. And it was cool, but it was like maybe 50, but this is a cold day for us.
Oh.
So this weekend it was like 68 or something. I mean, you know, like, and so you have to get it on ice as soon as that we strip that thing, you know, of all of its meat, and put it on ice immediately. And then we come home, and I have this bin that I've created that has holes in the bottom of it. So it's 2 plastic bins, and the bottom one doesn't have holes in it. The one that I put in it does. And then I place a cookie rack or a, you know, cooling rack inside that. And then I put my meat around it so that air circulates in the refrigerator. And it's still not optimal, because your optimal temperatures are between 31 and 37, I believe, degrees. And that's not really always the temperature of a refrigerator, but we do that. And we leave it in there for 7 days. But if I had the optimal temperature place, I would do it for 2 weeks, because you need that meat to denature and you need it to break down. And there's several ways to do it. And the way that I'm talking about is dry aging it in the refrigerator. And then we'll pack it really tight, make sure no air gets to it, and it'll last, you know, for 2 years. You know, I don't know if I would write that down on a blog or something, but, you know, pretty much, you know, it will. And then I'll get it out, and I lay it out when after it's thawed. I'll put it on the counter after it's thawed, and I'll let a fan blow, and that dries it out so that it cooks better, so that you'll get more browning and you know, and all of that. And then there's the wet aging, where you can go ahead and pack it and, you know, cryovac it as soon as you get it, you know, done, or as soon as you're ready to pack it up. And then you put it in the freezer. And then this is what I think the grocery stores do. And then they pull it out, and as it thaws, then it sits there for several weeks as it, you know, denatures and breaks down. So, you know, there's just 2 methods to doing that. But if you age it properly, you're going to have tender meat. Now, there are some tough cuts, but knowing what to do with those tough cuts is an important thing. So if you know what to do with them, then you're good. And then there's the tender cuts, which people may tend to overcook. You need to have them rare. And a lot of people worry about rare. They're like, oh, blood's running out of that. But if you let it rest, which but if you let it rest, you're not going to have all the juices running out everywhere. So people just need to let it rest, and, you know, they'll be good to go. So really aging it, prepare, you know, making sure that in the field you're preparing it, you're keeping it, you know, cold, and you're not letting it go bad, but you're allowing it to age. Then, you know, your meat is just ready and prepped and ready for you to cook with. And then you just have to match the method of cooking with the cut of meat that it is.
Yes.
Really,
which is similar to beef. Like you have your
yes.
braising cuts and your
yes.
cuts and your steak
yes.
cuts.
Yeah. Yes. And, you know, and then with your tougher cuts, if you don't want to grind it or make sausage out of it, you know, you can marinate it, or you dry age it. And I like to use coffee and ginger in my dry ages, you know, recipes, because they have a lot of acid, and that acid's going to pull out the hydrogen and leave in the oxygen. And then the lactic acid is going to be, you know, is going to occur in the meat. And then you've got this broken down, you know, denatured piece of meat that's going to be nice and tender for you and really super flavorful. So, you know, using acid, and you do that with a brine, or, you know, or marinade anyway, you know, too. Yes. So
I know with the beef, the aging makes such a huge difference. I know it's the same, like you said, the same with the venison and those. It just, like when we first butchered, we didn't know any better. Our very first steer we butchered here on the homestead, like 12 years ago, we didn't have the right temperatures outside. So we were just like, it'll be fine. We'll just wrap it and freeze it. And I mean, we ate it, but it was so tough. And now we now have ours done in a packing house, because that's what you have to do to ship it legally. But they age for 21 days, and it makes a huge difference. So,
that's amazing.
It's considerable. So just so I make sure I understand what your process is for the dry aging, if you aren't able to hang it in its entirety outside or in a cooler, you would cut it into smaller chunks, put it in your bins, with
Yes.
the holes, and then so draining liquid out.
Yes.
Put it in the fridge for a week-ish.
Yes. Yes.
And then you do your vacuum sealing or your wrapping and put it in the freezer.
That's right.
Okay.
And write the date on it and you're good to go. I also like to keep it whole in its form so that you have more versatility. Now, I will go ahead and usually, since we get 13 deer, I will go ahead and use one whole deer, and except for the loins, you just can't, you can't grind those. It's just, like a cardinal sin, but grind pretty much the whole thing. And then I've got packs of meat so that I can, make spaghetti or, whatever, or I may make sausage, at the same time, use half of it to make sausage. And so I've got sausage in there. So it's super versatile if you are able to just keep it whole. Like if you're only able to get one or two, because some states you have to draw a tag and you're only allowed to shoot one or whatever. And if you're going to do that, I recommend keeping like your, some people call it a football roast. And it's a tough piece of meat, but I still say keep it whole, because you can still cut it in pieces across the grain and you can marinate it for several days, and you can then cut it across the grain again after you brown it, and it still comes out really great. And you can use it on for fajitas or on top of a spaghetti or in a sandwich and stuff like that. So it's just so versatile. Even if they're tougher cuts, you can create tender, flavorful meat out of the tougher cuts. It's just a matter of knowing how to do it. And it's not that hard. It's just different than you would do beef. I mean, it's just different. Yes. It's the same thing as like, people think I know how to cook chicken, but if they went to go get one of those roosters and they tried to cook that chicken the same way they cook regular chicken, or, your what do you call them? Your cooking hens or cooking chickens or whatever.
Your age hens that you're.
Yes. Yep. Then, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, what is this? I mean, because I did that one time, and then I was like, this is like rubber. And I thought, okay, what would older people do back a long time ago? They would just keep that thing on the low and slow. And that's the other thing. People put their deer meat in a slow cooker, a crock pot. And I hate to, belittle that, but I love crock pots. I really do. But it doesn't go low enough. The temperature does not go low enough. Okay. And usually, you might have 250 at the lowest on a crock pot, but when you are doing low and slow and you're braising, it needs to be at 131, and maybe a little bit, to 157 or something. So somewhere in that range, so that it will be succulent and moist and draw out, you get that, what is it called? When the tendons break down, you get this really good flavor that you cannot replicate. No matter what you do, you can't replicate it. So it's worth it just for the stock. So, to cook not the venison that way, but to cook the chickens and in your wild turkeys, even, it's really, really good. So, it's just different. It's just different pieces of meat, different, different animals. You just have to treat differently. You just can't, you can't do them exactly the same way. Or people are gonna be like, well, I hate deer meat, or, I don't like quail. It's tough. Well, it isn't. It's just, it wasn't created. It wasn't made right.
Right. And so with your birds, are you letting those kind of chill? Like when we butcher our meat birds, we put them in ice bath for a while, and then we let them sit for a little while. And then ideally, if I can let them go overnight in a cooler, I will. Is that similar with your wild turkeys and your quail and your dove and stuff like that?
Yes. And we don't really age them. But we do try to keep them chilled, for a little while before we put them in the freezer. So it's kind of an aging process, but not so much. It's not as big of a deal, right. For those. So that is really, to me, about the cooking technique of being able to, give the right braise or the right brine, or whatever, and brining it for long enough, because you need longer, for a tougher animal. Mm-hmm. So that would be another thought. So, and I will brine them in a cooler with ice, and, so because it's a lot of times with these big birds, you don't have room in your refrigerators. If you don't have like a walk-in refrigerator and, and all that. Like we're kind of prepared more for that. But I think the regular, hobby homesteader, and they're not, they're not like relying on that for everything. They don't have enough room for what we're talking about a lot of times. So you had to break it. I think they need to break it down or use a cooler, for that. So, and I brine my turkeys like that for Thanksgiving, because I usually make at least two, big ones. So whether they be domesticated or wild, depending on, what kind of year we had with turkeys.
The brining makes such a huge difference with the birds. I think it just is the best. Like I won't even cook a turkey these days without a nice brine. It just, so good.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you mentioned,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say some of your homemade breads would be great with this bourguignon that I make, that from venison, and with the wine and the acid, and you're cooking it and all of that, and to have some of the homemade breads like you're doing. So good.
So good.
Yeah.
So you mentioned crock pots are a little, maybe not for all the cuts, but some of the cuts that are too hot when we want to go low and slow. So, you want probably a good Dutch oven with a lid, and you mentioned a cooler for some of the chilling or the brining. Any other equipment that you would recommend that people invest in for the kitchen if they're getting into wild?
Yes. And ultimately, I've thought, I had a guy one time on a radio show ask me, do you think you could make it out in the wild, for a week or something like that? And I was like, yeah, I could. And so he was like, okay, so what kind of kitchen equipment would you take with you? So I answered that question. It was pretty simple. I would take my skillet, my cast iron skillet. I would take twine, so that I could, stuff it with, like if I made an acorn paste or something, out in the woods, and I found some like lemongrass or some, purslane or something, and I, put it all together, and then I could wrap it up and, just sear the outside and then cut it. And man, I'd be eating like a queen. Oh, anyway, so, something like that. So twine, a good knife, great knife. I like Wusthof, for the most part, they stay pretty sharp. And then I think they have I think this is the company that you can send them and they'll sharpen them for life. I'm not sure. I could be wrong about that. Then, your cutting board, and trying to think what else. I think that's about it. I mean, you can just about do anything as long as you can start a fire and you have a cast iron skillet and maybe a pair of tongs, to turn it, but you could use your hand, no big deal. And, and then your twine, you're good to go. Or if you get birds, and you could stuff a bird, or, you could debone the bird and just, pan fry it, or, catch a fish, bring it on shore, and, use your skillet, for that. And you could cook it right over the coals, but I would rather not have the ashes in mine. I've seen it done on TV, but, but I don't think I want to do that. So, so really that's about it. I mean, but a Dutch oven would be very helpful. And you could get that way, if you were stuck in the woods. I know we're talking survival here, not homesteading, but if you were to be out, you could get your water clean and then use that water and braise your meat. And then you'd have fallen apart meat and add, whatever, you got to it, but you could do that. But in your kitchen, same thing. I would say the exact same thing. So twine, and I just thought it'd be interesting, just throw that out there. But all of those things, you have your Dutch oven and some spices. And I grow those, but thyme and basil and, oregano and all of those things, and parsley, you can just do so much with all of that. So really that's about it. It's pretty simple.
Super simple. I love it. Yeah. I like just staying. Yeah. The basics really let the food shine. I think there's so many kitchen gadgets. I mean, I do have an Instant Pot. That's about as gadgety as I get. I have a crock pot, but every holiday season they come out with the latest gadget. And I'm like, you guys we just don't need that. It's just the basics, the good knives and a Dutch oven and a skillet. And there's so much you can do with that. It saves you so much money not buying all the electronic stuff. And it makes the best food.
I know. And where do you put all that stuff? I'm having trouble with that now. I do have a roaster oven that I really love because you could travel with it, but it's pretty big. It's about like that big and it's pretty deep. So I could make a whole lot of corn chowder or something and I could take it to a big event. I really love that. But other than that, I don't I don't think, that really I need anything else. I don't use my slow cooker as much as I should. Part of it though is because since we have a family of 9 and I have most people coming home, coming home a lot, I'd have to have 4 crock pots. So
You would
even
have to
with my Dutch
yeah.
ovens, I mean, I've got 4 going, on the stove, or, 2 big ones, going every time I make something.
For
So,
sure. Yeah.
what about you? I mean, are you the same way? And as your kids get older,
I mean,
they're gonna eat more.
yeah, I mean, I don't have as many mouths to feed as you, but definitely there's been multiple times we've had gatherings where I'm like, my crock pot's not going to cut it. So I have a roaster oven as well for when we do our big, like our brandings or things like that. And I need to do a bunch of beef roast or a bunch of chili.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say I'm kind of like you. I do use my slow cooker. I don't use it every week.
Yes.
It's more, I would prefer the Dutch oven or those
Yeah.
sort of other more basic cooking methods when I am able to. Sometimes I'll
Right.
use the slow cooker. It's a nice fallback item, but
Well, and the slow cooker too, if you get one that you can use on the stove and you can go ahead and brown everything, and then put stuff in it, that's great. But if you're going to have to mess up a pot by browning the meat and then putting it into the other, I don't have time for that. And the crock pot's supposed to be saving me time. So,
exactly.
it's like I just want to dump stuff into a crock pot. And, and then I find that it's just not as good as, if you did the Dutch oven, and really it's the same thing. I mean,
Yes.
if you're at home, if you're working outside the home or something, then yes, the crock pot would be a miracle thing. So,
Totally. Yeah.
it'd be great.
Yeah. I agree though. The browning, yeah. And then you lose the bits of all the goodness on the bottom of the pan you brown in. It stays there and it goes in the other stuff goes in the crock pot and it dries. Yeah. So
Yes.
pet peeve there.
For real. Yeah.
Oh, Stacy, this was an excellent conversation. We covered a lot of ground. Where can people find you to catch up with what you're doing? You have some amazing books. Just kind of give us the rundown of where to find you.
Well, you can go to stacylynharris.com and subscribe to my newsletter, y'all. I would love for you to subscribe. I send out a newsletter weekly or whenever I post a new recipe or, post a new tip from, homesteading around here, or homeschooling. I'm going to be starting to do that soon. And hopefully we'll have a book out soon for y'all to read, the people that are homeschooling. And my books are on Amazon, but I also sell them on my website. I sign the ones on my website. I, would love for you to get a signed book and, get one and give one away. And I think mine's cheaper than what it is on Amazon. So, you can buy from there or Amazon. It doesn't really matter, or wherever you can find the book. And all my social media is at Stacy Lyn Harris. So check me out on Instagram. I do my daily stuff on there and show kind of what I'm doing. And I do a lot of videos on Facebook. So check that out, and YouTube. So those are my 3 main places, and Pinterest. So yeah, and you can find all of those links on the website if you go down to the bottom of the homepage, and you can click on them and find me really easy. So yeah, I hope y'all will get some books and join me, and and ask me anything you want to ask me. I get my emails and I check them regularly, so I'll be glad to give you any information if you need some.
I love it. So yes, and we'll drop all those links in the show notes as well, so you guys can click through there. I can attest Stacy's books are beautiful and just a really fun person to follow. So you'll enjoy getting to know her better over on Instagram or wherever. So thank you again, Stacy. I really appreciate your time, and I feel like I learned a lot. So this was a blast.
Well, thank you. You are so awesome. So I've learned a lot just talking to you.